Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were never supposed to end up here, not in court. Not in the middle of a scandal this explosive. Not with their carefully protected image unraveling in real time. But that's exactly what's happening, and Hollywood is still struggling to catch its breath. For years they were the gold standard, the dream couple. The charming, witty, untouchable duo who could do no wrong. But now they're the headline. The courtroom drama, the cautionary tale. What started as a seemingly small legal dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has erupted into something far bigger and far messier. Allegations of manipulation behind the scenes, media control, and private text messages that paint a wildly different picture than the one we've seen on red carpets. And at the center of it all, Blake and Ryan, their reputations on the line, their influence under a microscope. Court documents reveal a tangled web of strategic conversations, PR plays, and Hollywood politics that could rewrite the rulebook for how celebrities protect and potentially weaponize their image. And as more witnesses come forward, as more subpoenas are issued, and as more private communications are made public, the once untouchable couple is facing something far more dangerous than gossip accountability. This isn't just a legal battle, it's a full-blown unraveling. And whether you're a longtime fan, a media insider, or just someone watching from the sidelines, one thing is clear: the truth behind the curtain is finally being exposed, and what we're seeing, it's nothing like the fantasy we were sold. Stay with us, because this is just the beginning. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that gently fades in, but the kind that slams down like a judge's gavel. All eyes were on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds as the tension reached a point no one could have predicted. It was supposed to be a quiet legal maneuver, something brushed under the carpet, with well-paid attorneys and carefully crafted press releases. But instead, the facade cracked open wide, and the courtroom walls echoed with truths neither Blake nor Ryan were ready to face. For years, they were the golden couple of Hollywood. Blake Lively, the elegant star with an enviable career trajectory, known for her poised fashion sense and social grace, and Ryan Reynolds, the quick-witted heartthrob with a charm that turned any press junket into a stand-up special. Together they were seen as untouchable. But what's unfolding inside this legal firestorm reveals something far more complicated. And for some deeply troubling, the case itself started quietly. A simple dispute, at least on the surface. But the moment it was revealed that Justin Baldoni, a rising star in both entertainment and activism, had filed a formal complaint against Blake Lively, everything shifted. What began as whispers about miscommunications, contracts, and creative control soon snowballed into something far bigger: allegations, misuse of influence, and then the mention of text messages, private, unfiltered, and court-ordered. For Ryan, things seemed simpler. He wasn't named directly in the filing, and for a moment it looked like he might escape the spotlight, but then the subpoenas started landing one after another, with Ryan's name appearing alongside Blake's. Content creators, journalists, and even publicists were suddenly being asked to provide communications. Many speculated this wasn't just about legal facts, this was about reputation manipulation and the deliberate shaping of public narratives. And Ryan, he wasn't just a bystander. He was now part of the record. In court, the judge didn't mince words. The argument from Blake's legal team, which sought to exclude certain private messages from being introduced into evidence, was denied outright. The court ruled that relevance outweighed reputation. If those messages shed light on the timeline, the intent, or the extent of what was allegedly said and done behind the scenes, they would be seen, not just by the court but potentially by the public. And that's when everything began to fall apart. Legal experts say this is one of the rare instances where the public personas of celebrities are being directly challenged by their behind-the-scenes communications. The gap between who they portray themselves to be and how they allegedly acted in private has never been this exposed. And for an industry built on perception, that gap could become a chasm. People close to the case describe Blake as visibly shaken after the judge's ruling. Ryan, usually the picture of confidence, sat with a stoic expression, not his usual smirk. For a couple that has so carefully curated every red carpet moment, every philanthropic appearance, and every witty Instagram post, this moment was painfully unfiltered. There were no filters, no cute captions, just the cold hard truth of litigation and the sudden loss of control over their image. But the shock didn't stop there. Sources close to Baldoni's legal team revealed that the upcoming depositions may include several Hollywood insiders who were once considered allies of Blake and Ryan. These individuals, some of whom previously attended parties at the couple's home or worked with them on major productions, have reportedly agreed to testify not out of spite, but out of a desire to set the record straight. And that phrase, "set the record straight," has become the quiet war cry of this entire case. Because this isn't just a court battle, it's a reckoning. For years, certain voices in the industry have felt overshadowed, overruled, or outright dismissed when it came to high-powered Hollywood couples who seem to operate above accountability. Now, with every court filing, that structure is being dismantled brick by brick. What's especially jarring is how public perception has started to shift. Fans who once idolized Blake and Ryan are now raising serious questions. Were certain relationships in Hollywood manipulated? Were stories leaked intentionally to discredit others? And most damning of all, did their public image serve as a shield against legitimate criticism? Legal analysts say this case may redefine how celebrity power is viewed in courtrooms across the country. It's rare to see a situation where both the public image and legal strategy fall apart so publicly and at the same time, said one expert. But that's exactly what's happening here. And as the court orders more disclosures, including emails, text threads, and possibly even internal communications between their legal team and PR reps, it's becoming clear that this isn't just a story of two celebrities in legal trouble. It's a story about how the system has protected them and whether that system is finally cracking. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, the media frenzy has only intensified. Paparazzi now gather daily, hoping to catch even a glimpse of Blake or Ryan entering the building. Legal podcasts, commentary shows, and YouTube breakdowns are flooding social feeds, each offering a new theory, a new piece of leaked evidence, or a deep dive into their past statements. And as those videos rack up millions of views, public sentiment keeps evolving. This isn't just entertainment, it's a cultural shift. A moment where audiences are no longer satisfied with curated photos and cute jokes. They want the truth, and increasingly they're willing to turn on their former idols to get it. For Blake and Ryan, this is uncharted territory, and the court is just getting started. As the courtroom saga deepened, what had once been speculative whispers became unavoidable truths. The moment the judge ruled that Blake Lively's private messages would be admissible in court, a new chapter unfolded, one that cut far deeper than anyone, especially Blake herself, ever anticipated. At the heart of the controversy were a series of text messages exchanged over a year-long period. These weren't just casual conversations, they were strategic, deliberate, and in some cases laced with language that stood in stark contrast to Blake's public image. And once the court ordered them into the official record, the tone of the case changed overnight. The first batch of messages raised immediate eyebrows. Several texts appeared to show Blake coordinating with publicists and legal advisors about how to control the narrative surrounding a stalled film project that was originally linked to Justin Baldoni. The language wasn't necessarily illegal, but it was revealing. In one exchange, Blake allegedly expressed frustration that Baldoni was too good at making himself look like the victim and suggested that her team needed to get ahead of him in the press. That line alone sparked a firestorm across media circles and social platforms. Questions erupted. Was Blake trying to shape the coverage to protect herself? Was there an active effort to discredit Baldoni in the public eye, all while the behind-the-scenes drama escalated? What made the situation even more complicated was Ryan Reynolds' apparent involvement in several group chats tied to the situation. While he didn't lead the discussions, some messages suggested he was aware of the internal strategy. A few even showed him responding with emojis or brief approvals. Again, nothing overtly incriminating, but enough to show he wasn't oblivious to what was going on. And that's where the public perception began to truly shift. The idea that these two beloved celebrities, who had long been seen as the charming, funny, down-to-earth couple, were operating with such strategic calculation behind the scenes, was jarring. Fans who had once posted lovingly about their playful social media banter were now dissecting messages line by line, searching for intent, motive, and meaning. Even more damaging was a second batch of messages that showed increasing hostility toward Baldoni's team. One message allegedly from Blake referred to a specific journalist as unreliable and easily influenced. That journalist had previously published a piece sympathetic to Baldoni's side of the story. Critics immediately pounced, arguing that it painted a picture of an actor attempting to influence the media narrative from behind the curtain, not by sharing facts but by quietly discrediting others. Suddenly, it was no longer about one lawsuit. It was about the machinery of celebrity, the publicists, the crisis managers, the legal firms that work overtime to spin, pivot, and neutralize reputational threats. And as each message was read into the record, the machinery began to feel less like a myth and more like a documented reality. Inside the courtroom, you could feel the weight of it. Legal analysts noted that Blake's legal team looked increasingly tense. Ryan, who had once smiled politely during early hearings, now avoided eye contact with the press entirely. Even their attorney, known for his tough cross-examinations, seemed more cautious than usual. When one of Baldoni's lawyers read a specific message aloud, one in which Blake allegedly asked a team member To leak something more flattering about her, the courtroom went completely still. It wasn't illegal, but it was undeniably strategic. And that distinction mattered more than anyone realized, because for the court the issue was no longer just about contract terms or creative disagreements. It had become a question of credibility, of character, of whether the court could trust that Blake and Ryan had been acting in good faith, or if the narrative had been carefully curated from the start. And outside the court things were even worse. Headlines exploded. News outlets that had once celebrated Blake and Ryan's romance were now printing side-by-side comparisons of their public statements and the private messages now being released. Entertainment commentators were brutal. Some said the messages exposed a carefully managed public image at odds with private decisions. Others went further, calling it a masterclass in reputation over authenticity. Fans too were rattled. On social media, a wave of disillusionment hit hard. One tweet, which went viral with over 500,000 likes, summed it up bluntly. "The worst part isn't the messages, it's realizing we never really knew who they were at all." And amid all this, a new subplot emerged. Blake and Ryan's legal strategy began to unravel. Initially, their attorneys tried to argue that the messages were taken out of context. But when full transcripts were submitted by Baldoni's legal team showing not just snippets, but entire conversations, the context only made things more damning. Instead of just isolated moments of stress or venting, they revealed a prolonged pattern: discussions about press timing, influencer outreach, and even which friendly reporters to nudge in certain directions. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Blake and Ryan's actions, it was about intent, about the lengths to which some public figures go to protect their image, and the cost of that strategy when the truth comes out. Perhaps most significantly, it became clear that this wasn't just going to affect the court case. Reputations were now on the line in a way that no amount of PR cleanup could fix. A list peers in Hollywood, many of whom had once considered the couple close friends, began distancing themselves, subtly at first and then more overtly. A few quietly unfollowed them on social media. Others, when asked about the case during interviews or red carpets, declined to comment. The silence in this case said more than words ever could. Even more telling was the way certain industry publications started writing about the couple. Outlets that previously would have treaded lightly now seemed emboldened. One trade magazine published a timeline of all the major discrepancies between public and private behavior. Another ran a headline that read, "Behind the curtain when celebrity image management goes too far." And just when it seemed like the dust might settle, another bombshell dropped. An anonymous insider came forward, providing a sworn affidavit, claiming that a publicist working for Blake had offered them exclusive access in exchange for downplaying the Baldoni allegations in a popular weekly tabloid. While this claim is still being investigated and hasn't yet been proven in court, its very existence deepened public suspicion. Was this just a rogue move by a single publicist, or was it part of a broader strategy? The questions kept piling up, and the answers, well, they weren't looking good. Because what began as a single civil dispute had now snowballed into a much bigger cultural conversation, one about accountability, about truth in the entertainment industry, and about the power some celebrities have to control stories until they no longer can. And through it all, Justin Baldoni has remained relatively quiet. His legal team continues to submit filings, but he's made no public statements. Some say this is a tactical decision. Others believe it speaks to a deeper confidence that he knows time and now the court record are on his side. Meanwhile, for Blake and Ryan, the road ahead looks more uncertain than ever. What once felt like a tight scripted Hollywood drama has transformed into a raw, unscripted reckoning. And the next court session, it promises even more revelations. With every court hearing, what was once considered a personal dispute between celebrities evolved into something no one in Hollywood could continue to ignore. This wasn't just Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds in a courtroom, this was the unraveling of a carefully constructed Hollywood power structure. The story had reached a tipping point, and now the people who had spent years working silently behind the scenes were starting to speak up. For weeks, the entertainment industry had watched from the sidelines, avoiding comment, waiting to see how the case would shake out. But something shifted after the text messages were entered into the record. What once were industry whispers in private green rooms or late-night phone calls were now being validated by court documents. Suddenly, silence didn't feel like safety anymore, it felt like complicity. The first to break ranks were former assistants and mid-level producers. These were the people who knew how things worked, who had sat in on the meetings, seen the emails, and observed the strategy sessions that never made the headlines. While none directly accused Blake or Ryan of anything illegal, what they painted was a detailed picture of how celebrity control works and how it was allegedly used in this specific case. One former assistant, whose identity is being protected, for legal reasons gave a deposition describing an internal list maintained by a publicist working with Blake's team. The list allegedly tracked journalists, influencers, and even YouTubers, labeling them friendly, neutral, or needs watching. That claim alone sparked chaos online. Many creators began to question whether they had unknowingly been part of a media manipulation machine, praised or penalized not based on truth, but based on whether their coverage aligned with a pre-approved narrative. It didn't take long for the dominoes to start falling. A well-known celebrity stylist who had previously worked with Blake for multiple red carpet events gave a statement to the press suggesting that image maintenance was priority number one in Blake's world. There was this sense the stylist said that any press, even indirectly, had to be controlled. It wasn't just about how she looked. It was about how people felt about her. And that was tracked with extreme detail. That sentiment echoed through industry circles like a thunderclap. Suddenly the narrative was no longer is Blake innocent or guilty. Instead it became how much of what we've seen has been calculated. And when Ryan's name kept appearing in conversations, not as the mastermind, but certainly not as a bystander, the shine on the couple's joint image dimmed even more. Reporters who had once been granted exclusive access to Blake's projects began reevaluating their past coverage. One freelance writer even posted a viral thread admitting that they'd been gently steered away from covering negative rumors in the past, often in exchange for early access to film details or lifestyle features. While these practices aren't illegal, they painted a picture of tightly controlled media relationships that left many wondering how often stories had been shaped from behind the curtain. Meanwhile, the list of subpoenas kept growing. 3 high-profile content creators, each with massive online audiences, confirmed they had been subpoenaed for private messages relating to the case, not because they were accused of anything, but because Blake's team wanted to establish whether there had been coordinated efforts to defame her, and Justin Baldoni's team wanted to prove there hadn't. The result: independent creators were suddenly thrust into a legal battle they had only ever discussed from the outside. One of those creators released a video carefully worded, legally cautious, stating that they were shocked to learn their commentary had become part of court proceedings. "I never imagined that breaking down celebrity drama on YouTube would land me in legal documents," they said, "but here we are." The video was watched over 5 million times in less than 48 hours. Audiences were riveted. This wasn't just a celebrity case anymore, it was a clash between old media, new media, and the very structures of influence. If a YouTuber's commentary could be pulled into court, what did that say about freedom of expression? And if celebrities were trying to use the courts to manage narratives, was that a threat to independent journalism? It was Ryan Reynolds' quiet presence during these developments that stirred new speculation. Though he hadn't spoken publicly, legal filings showed he had received multiple communications regarding how to handle creators. In one group chat, he appeared to joke about sending cookies to that one reviewer who changed their tuna line. That has since been dissected for tone, intent, and meaning. Was it harmless banter or something more pointed? The fact that these digital conversations were now being used to establish potential motive stunned the legal community. One entertainment lawyer noted, "We've never seen this level of documentation in a reputation-based celebrity dispute. And what makes it explosive is the casual nature of the messages. They weren't meant to be strategic, but that's exactly how they're being interpreted." As this was happening, Justin Baldoni's team remained nearly silent in the press, but incredibly precise in court. In their most recent filing, Baldoni's lawyers requested the court allow testimony from former collaborators, including a documentary producer and a nonprofit executive, who both alleged that the narrative pushed by Blake's team affected their reputations as well. Though not parties to the original lawsuit, these individuals claimed that public perception, shaped through a series of carefully timed media hits, harmed their own ability to work in the industry. If the court agrees, it could lead to a snowball of testimonies and witnesses, expanding the scope of the case far beyond its original intent. And this expansion may be the most dangerous development for Blake and Ryan yet, because every new voice added to the record chips away at the image they've spent years cultivating, not just as actors but as a brand, a power couple, a Hollywood success story. And now that story is being rewritten not by their agents or PR teams, but by people who lived through the moments the public never saw. One former TV executive, speaking under anonymity, said it best: "This case isn't just about whether Blake or Ryan broke any laws. It's about whether they broke the trust we gave them as public figures. And that kind of fallout, that's harder to fix than any legal judgment." Outside the courtroom, the cultural backlash continued to swell. A major lifestyle magazine, once known for glowing coverage of Blake's fashion and home life, quietly pulled to articles from its website. No formal explanation was given, but insiders revealed that those pieces had been built entirely around access provided by Blake's team, access now seen in a different light. Several influencers who had previously posted sponsored content with brands linked to Blake or Ryan have also paused their collaborations, citing reputational clarity as their reason. And in a surprising twist, one anonymous tipster sent an email blast to multiple entertainment outlets claiming to have recordings of phone calls between PR reps discussing which creators to butter up and which to slow burn. The validity of these recordings has not yet been verified, but the possibility alone sent media outlets scrambling for legal cover. There was a time when Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds could handle a scandal with a single Instagram post or a lighthearted, late-night interview. But this is not that time. This is the era of receipts, of discovery, of every text, every DM, and every phone call potentially becoming evidence. And in that era, the game they once played so well may now be the one that finally plays them. As the dust begins to settle, at least temporarily, it's clear that this courtroom battle has already done more than damage reputations, it has shattered illusions. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, once considered Hollywood's most beloved and untouchable couple, now stand at the center of a reckoning that's bigger than either of them. This isn't just a legal drama, it's a cultural moment. A mirror held up to the entertainment industry showing how image management, media control, and public manipulation have long operated in the shadows, but now those shadows have been dragged into the spotlight, line by line, message by message, statement by statement. The legal case is still ongoing, testimonies are still unfolding, more documents may still be unsealed, but the damage to the myth of perfection, of curated personas and flawless PR has already been done. And it wasn't done by tabloids or gossip blogs, it was done in court. Whether Blake and Ryan ultimately win or lose this case, they've already lost something much harder to reclaim: trust. From fans, from colleagues, and from an industry that once celebrated them without question. Now those same voices are asking what else was fake. Hollywood too is paying attention. The fallout from this saga will likely influence how other celebrities manage their image, how creators and journalists protect their work, and how legal systems view reputation versus truth. And for Blake and Ryan, the cameras are still rolling, but the script is no longer in their hands. The world is watching, this time not for the red carpet but for the reality they never wanted us to see. What's happening with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds isn't just another celebrity headline. It's a landmark moment, one that's cracking open the polished, media-trained surface of fame and revealing something much more raw, much more real, and honestly much more uncomfortable. This legal drama has become a symbol of something greater than itself. It's about power, perception, and the price of a perfectly controlled narrative. Blake Lively once stood as the ultimate Hollywood image of class, control, and quiet strength. Ryan Reynolds, her ever-charming counterpart, was the social media genius who knew how to turn any awkward moment into a viral win. Together they didn't just embody celebrity, they redefined it. And yet, despite the photo ops, the philanthropic gestures, and the lighthearted jokes, what's now emerging through court transcripts, text message leaks, and growing witness testimony tells a different story. The very strategies that elevated Blake and Ryan to untouchable status are now being called into question. The same media relationships that kept them at the top of Hollywood's list are now being examined for manipulation. The PR firms, publicists, and legal teams that were once tools of control are now part of the record. And the fans who once adored them are watching it all unfold, not with admiration, but with disillusionment. But this story doesn't just end with the courtroom walls. It echoes across the entertainment industry. This case has shown content creators, journalists, and even everyday viewers that behind every perfectly captioned Instagram post is a structure, an infrastructure really of control, one that relies on silence, on influence, and in some cases on intimidation. And now that silence has been broken, creators who never imagined themselves in the courtroom are being dragged into depositions. Publicists who once pulled strings from the shadows are being named, and documents once thought private are now shaping public opinion. This isn't just a PR crisis, it's a credibility collapse. Blake and Ryan may still have their legal teams, their loyal fans, and their A-list contacts, but the most powerful tool they once had is slipping through their fingers: trust. Because no matter how this case resolves legally, the public has already seen too much. The curated charm, the harmless sarcasm, the relatable romance, it all feels different now. The gap between who they appeared to be and what's being revealed is too wide to ignore. And in that gap is where reputations either evolve or evaporate. Hollywood is watching. Creators are watching, the media is watching, and most importantly, the public is watching with fresh eyes and sharper questions. In the end, maybe this isn't just the downfall of a couple's carefully crafted image. Maybe it's the beginning of a larger shift, one where influence is no longer enough, where charm has limits, and where the truth, no matter how inconvenient, finally wins. And for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, that may be the hardest lesson of all.